So I'm getting ready to record the podcast today. I'm like, you know what? I've got a better one. Strategies for learning from failure. I'm looking right at you, CrowdStrike.
There we go.
Now, what'll be interesting is because this is all playing out right now as we're recording. So I think this will come out in 2 weeks. Maybe I'll try to rush this and get it out next week, just while it's hot. Get some of that SEO. Anyways, the difference is like, how do you handle failure? Okay, you just broke half the world because of something, like maybe you put the wrong light bulb somewhere. You caused downtime at a client. Now, in my career, I've seen many different ways to handle oops, I messed up. Yeah. And one of the ways is to pretend like it was somebody else's fault. Find any way to blame somebody else. It couldn't possibly have been me. It had to have been something somebody else did. And you'll focus on that. You'll focus on, you're just basically deferring. You're deferring to somebody else. It wasn't me. You see your kids will do this a lot, right? It's an ego thing. They're just not confident enough to say, yeah, I messed up. I'll try to do better. Here's what I'm going to do to fix it. And that's a great mature way to do it. But we're taught our entire lives that failure is bad. And if you fail, you're just going to get fired. You're going to be dismissed. No one's going to take you seriously. But I was working in a job where my literal title was a SWAT engineer. And our goal was to chase down outages and command them. So if an outage happened, a SWAT engineer got on and we ruled the roost. We were the one set of eyes everybody looked into. And then the more important part was at the end of the outage was we chased down why and how we're going to stop this from happening again. So with CrowdStrike, how do they avoid becoming a black eye like LastPass? So earlier this year, LastPass got several black eyes. And people are like, well, they didn't communicate well enough. They didn't respond in time. The expectations were all over the board. So with CrowdStrike, they're a good tool. I've used them in the past. Maybe they've changed over the past 10 years. But how are they going to respond to this? You just caused a shutdown of airports, hospitals, very critical infrastructure. Because that's where they made their headway, was in critical infrastructure. You didn't have to put these DATs in place. I'll tell you what, the new guys won't remember this, but us old guys remember updating Norton, and all of a sudden every file share you have dies.
Oh yes, that was awful. Absolutely awful.
Updating your DATs was like it was rolling the dice. Updating the engine was like you just don't do it.
Yeah,
and it doesn't matter how big or how, and that's why you get things like Sophos come in, and you had some great new people come in because it was so unreliable. And then if you know your background, it's you get a little wind going on back and forth there. Skip with your.
Oh, sorry about that. We got a lot going on around here.
Yeah, it sounds like you're in the middle of a windstorm. So, like when I went with CrowdStrike, I was so excited in critical infrastructure. We're so regulated that every time you deploy DATs, it's a change. It needs to be done in a certain way at certain times. And then when CrowdStrike and Silence came out and they didn't need DATs anymore, they're behavior based, we were like rejoiced. So all these critical infrastructures, hospitals, airports, electrical utilities, water utilities, I'm sure oil and gas was just like, I'm in. It proved to us it worked. So we did a rigorous testing cycle and it worked. And so this is the first time I've really had to see headlines from a Silence or a CrowdStrike. They still need to handle the failure the right way, or they're going to see a mass migration. See an opportunist come up and say, hey, go with us instead. Our DATs are better.
Well, and for real recent events or whatever, I'm usually in Houston, and if you've seen any headlines here of late, they've had a real hard time with electricity. And
I think it's hilarious that you guys struggle so much with electricity, given the amount of power you generate.
Yes, we like to call ourselves the energy capital of the world, and so we have this issue down here with electricity, and sometimes our pets, apparently. Apologize for that.
Yeah,
And,
your puppy needs
you
some
know,
attention over there.
yeah, somebody's needing some bad. The local provider has just been very, very poor at communicating, and they have taken some real serious public relations hits. And I feel like it's going to really impact their business. We've in side conversations all over the place. We've had lots of topics around, Texas is a very capitalistic sort of place, and we are this energy industry down here. And I know there are people sitting around going, if Centerpoint, which is a utility provider, if they're going to do such a lousy job, I bet I can do it better. And I bet I can figure out a way for people to pay me rather than paying this utility provider. And obviously, it's, I'm sure, very, very complicated. But at the root of that is your customers. And anytime that you have an outage, if you aren't handling it properly,
Yep.
you're really opening the door for someone to come in there and go, I can do that better than the person that's failing miserably right now. And the failures sometimes in a technology driven industry like we are, sometimes the failures are almost unavoidable. But what we can avoid is handling them poorly,
Yeah.
and being able to communicate and stay on top of that really, really quickly is going to mitigate all these sort of issues. And you have to be prepared. You mentioned something earlier, Adam, about the confidence. Sometimes in our kids, they don't have the confidence to admit when they're wrong. And that's something that you have to find, is that ability to say, hey, we messed up. My team messed up. We did this, and we're going to make this right. It doesn't mean that you're going to bend over and just give away everything, but you are going to do the right steps and be professional about solving the problem and communicating that along the way.
Yeah, and to go through and give you a strategy for learning from failure. There's something called root cause analysis. I had worked with a team of exceptional engineers to build this document we called an RCA form, and it hit upon key objectives. So when an outage happened, when something bad happened, you had to chase down these. There could not have been, well, I rebooted and it came back up. Nope, that was not good enough. It was a why did the reboot fix it? I need you to chase it down. And if you say I don't know, that goes on your record. Unknown outage cause is something you do not want on your record. That means incompetence. And it's hard to find these things. You might have to call up the vendor and get into some of the back end logs and try to figure out, like, okay, there was a memory leak, there was a bad patch, there was a surge, whatever it was. But you had to find it, and it was hard work. And that's why a lot of times we don't do it, because we're so busy running and keeping the lights on that we don't have time to do this nitty pit. Like, oh yeah, it was a bad register or whatever. So what you want to do is, for a strategy on learning from failure, there's only one person in this world you control. Does Skip know who it is? I can only control myself. That's it. I can only see inside this mind. Everybody else is looking at me and saying, "Oh, what can I do?" So, we say this to our kids all the time, like, "Who do you control?" Well, Jazzy said this, like, I don't care. Who do you control? And so when it comes to learning from failure, admit what your part in the failure was without qualifying it.
Yes.
Say,
I think that
I
without
did
qualifier,
this wrong,
yes. Yes.
and
That
stop.
is a really important element, because if you put qualifiers on it, it doesn't, it's shifting the blame. It's problems elsewhere. Yes, there are things that you have to deal with. You're responding to external sources. But if there is something that you didn't handle right, you need to be upfront with that. And,
Yep.
these outages and these issues are never really single point. So there are things happening right now with the incidents going on, and all sorts of organizations are having problems, but it's highlighting other problems as well. And as those organizations go through this exercise of, why did this happen so badly? They can't just point their finger at the software vendor and go, it was all their
Yep.
fault. Right? They're going to have to say, well, yes, this happened, but our business continuity plan says that we should have been able to do this, and our backup didn't, our failover didn't work right. Whatever that is, you have to be able to step up and admit that. And
Yep.
I'm going to call out, an experience that I don't think is as common anymore. But for anybody that's done, wide area networking for a while and have had to deal with leased lines, way back in the day, it was,
Oh my gosh.
either T1s or just the 56Ks. Yeah, and all. I mean, we had MPLS and frame relay. There's all these sorts of great technologies. But at the end of the day, you had a local provider who was delivering a circuit. And how many times did you have an outage? There's no change. You've checked all your equipment. Everything's good. You call the AT&T or MCI or whoever it is, and you get someone on the phone and they're doing something, and they go, I don't know, it all looks good. But all of a sudden everything starts working, right? They reset something. They many times way back in the day, we'd have to actually have a tech go out to whatever the local exchange was, and they would, I went with them sometimes. They'd pull the card out of the slot and they'd push the card back in the slot. And that worked. And it was so frustrating when they wouldn't even admit, I don't know, that I couldn't get a response. So I just reset the device. I reset the endpoint. All right. That's fine with me. I'm okay with that explanation. But don't tell me, I don't know. Everything looks great here on our side. Yet I know good and well you did something, because I'm sitting here on the phone and watching it happen real time. And that ability to own it is critical in maintaining your trust and your reliability and building your relationship going forward.
Yeah. And also as a manager, you have to give people permission, like, I screwed up. Okay, what can we do now? How can I help?
Yep.
How do we avoid this in the future? Don't start reaming them. Like, half the lectures I give my kids is just getting them to admit they did something wrong so they can learn. And so if you give your employees, like, look, if you tell me what you did wrong, we can build something around how to do it better. Otherwise, I cannot predict you as an employee. I can't help you as an employee. You're not in trouble. I just need this to run smoothly. You learn more from failure than you learn from success. So let's walk this through. If you cannot tell me what went wrong, then I'm going to go over to Mary over here and ask her, like, what in your mind, what went wrong? And she has to tell me where you failed. She's going to be one level up on manager status, promotion status, because they had their eyes open. So learning from failure, a strategy is always look at yourself first, no matter what it is. Things could be completely out of your control. But what was your part in that failure? Well, I could have been in the outage when I could have been there for the change window, giving more guidance to the engineers. Is that a successful strategy for avoiding outages in the future? It may not be, but at least now you know what your part was. And by saying, you know what, I failed in that I was not able to be on the call helping out, and I know these systems really well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, everybody knows that, okay, you can't expect it to be on every call, every situation. So what we need to be able to say is, hey, how do we get somebody more trained? Cool. So you would like more training so that you're better at handling these things in the future. Now we're giving people permission to admit failure. I admitted my failure. Let's go around the circle. It's like AA. Let's go around the circle and talk about where we failed. and then we can help each other succeed. Like, oh, you don't know how to do DNS? That's in my bag. Let's sit down and talk it through and we'll spend some time together. Oh, you don't know how to do, or you know what? We don't have any logging for this particular situation. So we have no idea what went on. I could have had a log file going there, and or
Yeah.
I could have set verbose logging before I started my change. Whatever it is. So I don't know, in the end of the day, they'll probably know, maybe even right now, they probably know exactly what's going on with CrowdStrike and Microsoft. It probably identified part of Microsoft's OS as malicious and stopped it, did
Mm.
its job. But what
Yeah.
we need for CrowdStrike to do is own up to what they did wrong, how they're going to avoid that in the future, and and have this go to everyone, explain it to everyone.
Mhm.
So
Well, and there's a really important element here about getting to this point quickly as well, because without understanding what the problem is, the team, whoever's involved, can spend a lot more time trying to figure out what's going wrong.
yep,
And if people end up wasting a bunch of time in cycles trying to identify something that was what was wrong long before they did, that just again creates way more frustration. I have this is kind of a gold standard or a gold example for me personally. I'm 19, 20 years old, something pretty new, obviously, in just the workforce, and I'm working at a computer repair store. Right, that's what they were back then. They weren't IT service companies or MSPs. We were computer stores, and people would bring their PCs in. They were big and heavy. We had a big service desk. It was very I don't know, very nostalgic, seems like. So they'd come and they'd drop those down. And this one customer came in and they wanted to upgrade their hard drive. Common exercise we went through. And at the time, the cables that connected those, they had a row of pins on them and
the
very poor
ribbons.
design. Yes, so the ribbon
Oh,
cable.
they're a fantastic design for the day.
Oh, yes, because
You never
could,
bent a pen.
or yeah, and you could plug them in wrong, and I did. I missed alignment. I didn't plug in all the pins on one side because I offset it, and so it oddly enough came up. I mean, it booted and I could access a hard drive, but in the process of doing this, I pretty much wiped out all the data on their hard drive. Now I'm, struggling trying to figure out what this is, and it doesn't take me long going through. You check the cables, and I look down there and I see this exposed row of pins on the connector here, and I'm like, yeah, that's the problem, and I know it's messed up. Now there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, somewhat, with PCs, especially back then, right? And I could have come up with, gee, I don't know. Sometimes this happens. We try to do this and, really push this off. But I saw my problem and I immediately went to the owner of the company. It was hard. I mean, he was not he was not a big teddy bear. I'll just put it that way. All right. And I admitted what I did wrong. And yeah, he was ticked. But he was like, okay, we know what the problem is. He can deal with it with the customer, knowing right then this is the problem. And we don't have to go through all of these hoops to track down what it is and then modify the story and kind of create the perspective. No, I screwed up. I gave him the right information. And as hard as it was, he handled it appropriately with the customer. And it's not a great situation, but it kept it from being much worse.
Yeah.
And that really, I think, goes to the problems. If you're having a failure, things are bad enough. Don't make it any worse.
Yeah.
Just get it out there.
Yeah. And own it. And we're taught, like in school and stuff, not like that failure is bad. So you get an F on a test, it's bad. You don't know an answer, it's bad. And, especially those of us from the 80s, like the teachers just were less than kind in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
It was tough love all around. So
Yeah.
you've got these group of people who are afraid to make mistakes. So strategy, just start with yourself. How do I say, this is what I did wrong? Here is how I played into the CrowdStrike failure. you know,
Mhm.
in a situation, Adam Walter does not work at CrowdStrike. My failure is I don't work there. I can't help them.
Yeah.
If I was working there, I might have been able to help because I'm really good with outages, but I don't, and I won't. So, the that getting that's over. What else can we do? What else can we say is a failure? So, as
Mhm.
somebody hosts CrowdStrike or is responsible for CrowdStrike for clients, okay, where's your failure? Did you have a backup plan? Did you have a rollback plan?
Yes.
What happens when your antivirus completely gets corrupted? So, oh crap, we did not have a plan for rolling back antivirus or rolling back this stuff,
Hmm.
or rolling back the patch. We did not have an alternative pathway. Now, CrowdStrike and antiviruses are very difficult to replace. That's on purpose. That's a
Yeah.
good antivirus, but the or anti-malware suite. But you could say, "Hey, we did not have a plan for this. We should have tested this better." Um,
Hmm.
for you critical infrastructure clients, how about we create a test environment that we do before rollouts? Or would you like to accept this risk, knowing this is the first time this has happened in 10 years?
Yeah.
Or we can build up a $3,000 test environment, and then before every rollout, we will do a test. And for some critical infrastructure, that's already necessary, which is why
Yeah.
probably the electrical industry isn't affected right now because their rollout of this stuff is really structured.
Hmm.
Um, but that's how you give your client options. Let them have some control. So that's the second thing I want to talk about: strategy for learning from failure. Don't take away control. Grant control. So here's what I did
Hmm.
wrong. Here's what you did wrong. Here are our options for moving forward. Which one do you think would be best?
Yep.
And talk to your client about that and let them educate you on, okay, you know what? This is the first time this has happened in 10 years. Let's go ahead and accept the risk and keep operating this way. However, next time this happens, let's really think about moving to plan B where we put a change process in place, a more
Right.
strict one.
Mm.
And so that way you're talking to your client, you're giving them options. Here's the failures, here's the options. Let's discuss as a group, especially with the client, what do you think we should do better? And then open the discussion so that you can learn from them, even though they're non-technical, about risk management and strategies. And they can learn from you the technical specifics of what their options are. Don't just walk in and say, we're going away from CrowdStrike. They're dumb.
Yeah.
That's what people do with
Well,
LastPass.
and
Oh, we're going away from LastPass. They're dumb.
yeah, moving on. And giving your clients that option is really empowering and working with them on that. So specifically with this one, it is a great opportunity to sit down with clients and go, okay, here's the outage, and everything's fresh here. What is the financial cost of this on your organization?
Yeah.
And it's good exercises for your clients because they realize that their business many times is complex, and this is a way to at least zero in on one area of their business. And so when they come back and say, all right, this particular incident cost us this much money, then you can put that in the context of the solution. And just like you were saying, we haven't seen this happen before. We could just accept this risk. This is what it cost you. This is what it's going to cost you to remediate this. What would
Yes.
you like to do? And if they look at this and go, our business almost went under because of this. We almost lost, some big contract or something. They're like, no, the cost of remediation is well worth it to mitigate that risk. And they will willingly spend the dollars because they see the value. But if they look at that and go, that was really bad, but you're telling me to fix this, we're going to have to spend this much money, and we might not need that given this is a
Yep.
first time occurrence in recent history. No, I think I'm okay with that. And if they make that decision, and, unfortunately, sometimes we do get things in series, if it happens again, your clients are going, okay, all right, well, we know what it was going to cost. We evaluated this last time. And I think now we want to do that, or well, whatever the scenario plays out.
Yep.
But your clients aren't just looking at you going, I thought you told me this would never happen again. And it just puts you in a bad spot. And so
And setting those
you've got to
expectations
make
is
them part
important.
of it. Yeah.
But also, like for businesses out there, when you're looking at somebody who does technical support or engineering of any kind for you, it's a cheesy question to ask me, like, tell me about a failure you guys had and how you learned from it. Or just stop there. Tell me about a place where your business failed and you lost a client.
Yeah.
And see how they come back to it. If they start talking about how the client was just always difficult, they never really listened, and blah 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 blah. They're look at what they're doing. They're blaming their failure on the client, which a lot of it may be true. But they
Mm-hmm.
could also have said, you know, we didn't communicate really well. We fixed some of those processes by hiring a new account manager who's really great at communication strategy. And we learned a lot from that. And we'd love to have the client back, but it's just not how the world works. And we're willing to take that lesson learned and bring it to you. That is
Yep.
a fantastic answer because it puts
Yep.
all of the ownership on me as the person who failed, even if I know for a fact that the client just never responded. But I can say,
Uh-huh.
you know what? We just did a bad job of communicating. We need to do better. We hired an account manager. Here's what we did to kind of fix it. And we would love to make sure that we're communicating really well with you guys, which is why we, have our 13-step process for onboarding, whatever it is, and then play it right in, but be genuine about it and take ownership, even if it's not your fault. We're not looking for fault here. We're looking for information so that we can
Yes.
find the root cause and take that failure and either turn it into an opportunity, a win, a learning exercise, something that makes it better. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
completely remediated. You just have to have that strategy where you're talking with the client about this is what happened. Here's our options for moving forward. What would you like to do? And involve other people. Don't just keep it internal because other people are going to make up their own narrative. It's what we're really good at
Yeah.
doing.
Yes. Yes. And
So,
if you don't have a say in that narrative, you may be written in as the villain.
yep. I think, I'm going to try to live a lot. Live every hero lives long enough to be the villain. What is that spirit phrase?
Oh yeah.
The
Like
yeah
that.
the die a hero or live long enough to become a villain. There we go. Uh,
No.
and so that's just because as you get older, you realize that failure is inevitable. Now, how you deal with failure is what separates you in the professional services industry. Do you blame others or do
Yep.
you accept and say, here's how I can help us be better? Here's what I did wrong, and here's what I can control. And here's how I can help this move better. Now, what do you want to do? Can you help me understand how to be better, how to do this better, and get that feedback? Now people are feeling involved, they feel heard, and they don't feel dictated to. I think I'm gonna try to rush this one and try to get it out on Monday. So yeah, see if I can get this
All
out in
right.
2 days. And
This
that way, well, it's a hot topic of failure. We've had a couple big hits this year: CrowdStrike, LastPass. There's been a couple others. And
mm-hmm.
how are they dealing with it? How do you set expectations so that you don't end up losing a bunch of customers because you're just trying to do the right thing?
Yep. There we go.
All right. Thanks a lot for attending, and we will see you all next week.
See ya.